a great weekend of football, but I want to discuss this ESPN article because it's good, it's timely. The PFF free agent list is out there. Go check it out, pff.com. Sam and I and Brad Spielberger, our cap/contract expert that we've just added to the mix this last year. We've worked hard on our free agent list. We're going to continue to add to it in the coming weeks. So ESPN had this article on the most important decision for all 32 teams. So it's essentially a guy that's going to hit free agency that they just have to make a decision on. And I think it's a really good starting point, discussion point. So let's start with Dak Prescott as the decision that the Cowboys have to make. I had somebody ask me, why is Dak Prescott on your list of potential free agents? It's because as of now, he's technically going to be a free agent, and the Dallas Cowboys have to make an official decision to sign Dak or let him walk.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a bigger decision to be made than the one on Dak Prescott. I think everyone assumes that it's a slam dunk. Obviously, you pay Dak, but they haven't so far, right? And the number has only been going up for the entire time they've been negotiating. From the point where they drew a line in the sand and said, this is our number, accept it, or, come back with a counter, the contract or Dak's leverage has gone up and the number that he will be playing with has gone up. So if they haven't done it yet, it's not a slam dunk that they're going to do it, particularly having, him coming off an injury and all those other things. It isn't a slam dunk. They have to make this happen if they want it to happen. And I think there's a real argument that you don't need to, or you might be better off going in a different direction. And it's not because Dak Prescott isn't a great quarterback. He is, but it's because, is he a transcendent quarterback that justifies the $40+ million a year you're going to have to pay him to keep him? Or have you just seen enough with Andy Dalton? Have you seen enough from Andy Dalton to justify, hey, getting okay quarterback play with this group of receivers is actually kind of easy, right? And we're not saying we roll into 2021 with Dalton as your starter, but the point is, if I can get him to do that with a garbage offensive line with this group of really good receivers, it's not that hard to find a guy that can play 80% of Dak Prescott without having to spend much money at all.
See, I've changed my tune on Dak over the last year plus of watching him play. I always go back to, there was a point after his first 4 seasons where he had 2 top 10s and 2 times where he did rank 18th, 19th, 20th in PFF grades. Mm-hmm. And the stats were a little bit better than his performance would indicate. But I do think, he had his best year in 2019 and then continued that into 2020 before the injury. And I know it's with that great supporting cast, but I think what you're paying for here is the known versus the unknown. And I always use that top 8, top 10 quarterback cutoff. And I think with Phillip Rivers retiring and Breeze is gone and maybe Big Ben's gone soon, it's a new top 8, right? Brady's 43. There's a new top 8 to 10. And there was a point where Dak felt like he was on the outside looking in. He was similar to Wentz. He was similar to Goff. Let's be serious here. Those guys have rotated through who's been the best quarterback since they all got drafted in 2016. But I think Dak is in that top 8 mix. So if you're going to get Phillip Rivers, Big Ben, Andrew Luck type of production year in, year out, I think Dak is that guy. And I would pay for that. I'd pay $40 million for that. I would pay for that, for the known. And I think that's what Dallas should do. And then you just say, okay, we have to do everything we can to keep the Amari Coopers and CeeDee Lambs and Michael Gallups around him as much as possible. And that's the way you maximize that investment.
But remember, the unknown isn't as scary as it used to be. That was the thing, is that quarterbacks, part of this crazy quarterback money was driven by a bunch of contracts that were given out because the prospect of the unknown was so terrifying that you threw whatever amount of money was required to keep the guy you already had, right? The devil you knew was so valuable compared to the one you don't that you just had to throw a $100 million contract at Alex Smith or Joe Flacco or whoever it was, right? The unknown is no longer particularly scary because absolute worst case scenario, you decide late into training camp that, you know what, Jarrett Stidham sucks. We're going to have to go in another direction quickly. And Cam Newton's still sitting there on the street for a bargain basement contract. And you sign him up. Okay, he wasn't the answer anyway. But my point is, it's not that hard anymore to find a viable starting caliber quarterback.
But you keep talking about viable all these guys. And top 10 is significant.
It is. But so is the difference between top 10 and transcendent, which is the problem that Dallas faced, right? The different, like, do you ever anticipate Dak Prescott reaching a level that Deshaun Watson was on this season?
No.
Okay, so that is your problem because he's going to require the same contract. And if not higher, right? Because he's signing it later. So that is Dallas's problem in a nutshell. They're going to have to pay an equivalent contract for something that definitely isn't the same level of play. And the difference between the two is an important one because it's the difference between you being able to elevate everybody around you. Okay, Deshaun Watson just went 4-12, so not elevate them that much. But it's the difference between being able to make everything else better and when the pieces start to fall apart around you, you're done. And that, I think, is significant for Dallas because do you pay a Deshaun Watson contract for a guy that's 85% of Deshaun Watson, or do you pay like a bag of peanuts for a guy that's 85% of Dak Prescott?
It's a fair point, but I think that the money that you save on Dak is going to be, I know it's locked up in Zeke. That's another issue.
That's your problem, yeah.
That's a big problem. But the money that you save on Dak gets you what? Starting linebacker, starting strong safety, starting like maybe two other starters that you just need to be average. I still think that the opportunity cost that you miss out on between Dak and the next guy is significant enough. I'd still pay for the known because, look, we've discussed plenty of times here in this podcast, it's easy to find a starter. But maybe that's dwindling a little bit because do you want to roll in with, I love Jameis, but do I want to be tied to Jameis, right? Like I love him in theory as like top 32 quarterback in the world. Do I want to be the team that starts Jameis Winston? Do I want to be the team that starts Marcus Mariota or Cam Newton? Do I want to be the team that, Daniel Jones is a viable starter, but do I want to just, Daniel Jones is my guy for the next 4 or 5 years? Do I want to be tied to them? I feel much more comfortable being tied to Dak than any of those other guys, even if I have to pay a little bit more money for it.
Dallas's problem is that the decisions they're making now are irrevocably tied to mistakes they've made in the past, right? So the Zeke Elliott thing, if you hadn't already thrown a ton of money at Zeke Elliott, this would be easier. If you had just signed Dak Prescott to a big extension in the first place and not had this protracted negotiation, you would be better off because it would be cheaper and you'd already have it done, right? Now, neither of those things are true. So you've already thrown a ton of money at Zeke. That's gone. And you have to pay Dak Prescott more than you would have had to pay if you just locked him up early and got it done. So you're faced with a different set of circumstances and the price is higher. And that's what makes it a decision to me. If you're just asking in abstract terms, is Dak Prescott worth a big contract extension with no other information present? I would say yes. But in the current set of circumstances,
given the other mistakes,
I think there is a line at which Dallas should not go beyond financially. And if that line is already short of where the money needs to go, like they have to walk away. They've already sort of set that precedent.
If Dak does hit the market, you've got other teams who haven't made the running back mistake.
Who can afford that.
The Bears and these other teams that are just going to go all out for Dak if he actually hits the open market. Okay, a couple other decisions that I think are huge. Let's look at two of the best receivers in the entire free agent class, Kenny Golladay and Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson, we've talked about so much about how he's never really played with a good quarterback, and now it's his chance. It's now his chance to shop around. Give me Aaron Rodgers, I'm coming to you. Whoever, Deshaun Watson, I'm coming to you, even though they don't have the money in Houston if he stays. Either way, Allen Robinson can go find a good quarterback to play with. And then Kenny Golladay in Detroit, the entire Lions receiving core is free agents, from Kenny Golladay to Marvin Jones to Danny Amendola. It feels like they at least need to try to lock Golladay up, not let him hit the market. Whereas I think the Bears, they might just be past their time with Allen Robinson. With
Detroit, I think it comes down to what they are going to do with Matthew Stafford. So Dan Campbell signs as head coach, 6-year deal, which, by the way, is like the life jackpot, right? Nobody has any idea if Dan Campbell's a good head coach, but he's got guaranteed money for 6 years.
Yeah.
He could be a disaster, get fired after 12 months, and be laughing to the bank for the next 5 years, just feet up, chilling on the beach.
But really he's a competitor. He doesn't want to do that.
Really is goals. Anyway, my point with that is 6-year deal suggests they think that this is a project. This is not a quick fix. This is a potential rebuild, tear down. have some time committed to this, at which point that gives you the flexibility to say, you know what, Matthew Stafford's time here might be coming to an end. We're going to go in a different direction at quarterback. We're going to find a new guy and rebuild this thing from the ground up. I think if you're keeping Stafford, Kenny Golladay is an absolute must because that offense is crippled when he's not there. Like, it's huge. Sure. If you're going in a different direction, you've got time to find the quarterback and then build a receiving group around him.
The tricky part, though, and my friend Mike Tannenbaum uses this phrase, and I hope I don't completely ruin it. This phrase that Parcells used to say, Bill Parcells, you have to win now. Like, when you take over a team, you have to win now so you can win tomorrow. And it is that hybrid approach of, like, remember Parcells' teams historically, they would make a quick turnaround. Mm-hmm. And it's because he would get veterans in there. And even if they're not part of the 6-year plan, they're part of the 2-year plan. And it's almost like you need to get that vote of confidence. You need to get the organization moving in the right way to win now so that, yes, 3, 4, 5 years from now, okay, now you can make your run at a title, right? So I think there's this element of you can't just let everybody walk. You have no receivers. You don't want to go into next year with absolutely nobody to throw to. I don't think you want to just move on from Matthew Stafford immediately. So I think there's going to be some transitional time, and Stafford plus Golladay seem like they should be a part of that. So I would bring Golladay back because he could be a part of the win tomorrow and win 4 years from now as well. I think with Allen Robinson, though, the Bears should try to keep him. I just think he's checked out of Chicago.
Oh, he definitely wants out. But like, they could franchise him, right? Like,
yeah.
They can keep him if they want to.
Piss him off even more.
Yeah.
By the way, I think the Bears are making, based off the press conferences and where Nagy is and just the whole thing. I think they're trying to make a big move at quarterback. They're going to be calling around trying to make
what
a
is it?
Huge.
Predict one. Call it out now. What are the Bears doing to quarterback? What's their splash play?
I mean, if Dak hit the open market, they're going all in there. I think they might call the Raiders for a Derek Carr.
That's your splash play at quarterback, Derek Carr.
Have you seen the Chicago Bears quarterbacks for the last 30 years?
Yes.
That's a massive splash in Chicago, yes.
What the point is not to make a splash relative to the ineptitude you've had.
It is a little bit. It is
to make a splash overall.
No, hey, Derek Carr was a top 10 quarterback last year. He's got 2 top 10 finishes in PFF grades in his history, and 1 borderline. It's like getting back to the glory days of Eric Kramer in the mid-90s.
God.
That's a splash play for the Bears.
Okay. When
you go from Trubisky and Foles to a Derek Carr, it absolutely is. But that's the type of thing I think they're going to be looking at. Let me think of what else. Gardner Minshew. No. Let's go to some other decisions. Right here down the street, Carl Lawson, Cincinnati Bengals. He's hitting the open market, as is William Jackson III. Both of those guys are 2 guys came in right around the same time, and 2 of the better players on a bad Bengals team here. It feels like they got to at least keep one of them. And Lawson's one of those guys. He's only got like 23, 24 career sacks. He's the best pass rusher on the market by our grades over the last few years. And on the open market, sacks get overpaid for every single year. Bud Dupree's going to get overpaid by for sack totals, and a few other guys are too. Carl Lawson could be the steal of free agency, and that's why I think the Bengals should do what they can to keep him.
I am inclined to agree. I also think that you could just deploy this guy as a genuine situational pass rusher. Just tell him, forget the run. I don't care. Don't care at all. Make him into Yannick Ngakoue, right?
Yeah.
Do not care if you defend the run whatsoever. Just go after the passer. And I think he might be a better pass rusher than Yannick Ngakoue if that's all you ask him to do. But it's almost like they treat him a little bit like New England does with, what's the guy's name?
Dietrich Wise?
Yeah, there you go. Dietrich Wise, who is so bad as a run defender, you can't do that in Bill Belichick's system, so you just get marginalized and never play. But the Bengals feel like they do that with Carl Lawson a little bit as well. It's like, but you don't even run what Belichick does, and B, you can't really be that picky. Beggars can't be choosers, and right now you've got a little pot out begging for coins, right? You actually have a guy that can do some damage. Unleash him, let him go.
Yeah, I would try to hold on to him if I'm the Bengals. Another big name is Justin Simmons, one of the best safeties in the NFL over the last couple of years for the Broncos. Let's talk 2 safeties, Justin Simmons and Marcus May. They're part of our top 5 safeties hitting free agency. You've got Marcus Williams from the Saints, John Johnson from the Rams and Anthony Harris from the Vikings. They're all different styles, but Marcus May for the Jets, Justin Simmons with the Broncos. They franchised Simmons last year. I think they definitely want to bring him back too, especially in Fangio's system with how much they rely on good safety play. Simmons has been just fantastic the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think he has. He's really good in that role. He's really good. He's more active than a free safety has any right to be. I think he should absolutely be extended long term. The Marcus May one is more interesting, though, because the Jets are still in this rebuild mode. Marcus May obviously is a really talented player, but you shipped off Jamal Adams, which I think was the right move for
a first rounder, yeah.
2, right? They got 2 first rounders for him? Or did I make that up? What did they get? Anyway,
Don't put me on the spot.
Sorry. They got more than enough back for Jamal Adams to make it a worthwhile deal, right?
2 first rounders.
Yeah. See, I knew. Even though he's a talented playmaker.
Seahawks?
Right.
It just looks worse and worse.
Even though he's a talented playmaker, it makes sense to ship a guy like that off for 2 first-round picks. But because you've already done that and you have Marcus May now stepped into that role, did a good job, you're essentially left with the same question, albeit without the draft capital involved, he's a safety. Is a safety ever impactful enough for you to pay the giant amount of money to, particularly when you're not one safety piece away from a Super Bowl, right? You're in the middle of a rebuild. Is it worth committing a monster contract to Marcus May, or should you just say, thanks for the time, good luck in the future?
You're not a safety away. However, Marcus May was one of the reasons why the Jamal Adams trade could happen, right? Because the Jets, when we do our team needs pieces here, Jets, what do you need? O-line, receivers, but mostly receivers and corners, right? The receivers and corners, you got to be able to cover. If you take another piece out of that secondary, it just, okay, now you need a safety.
It certainly isn't helping.
It adds to the need list. Yeah. And I think, win now so you can win tomorrow theory, at least keep some good players. And I think May is one of them. And again, I think he's done it in multiple roles. He's played Jamal Adams' role. He's played straight up free safety. He's done it all. And in, Robert Saleh's defense there, honestly, he could play either the true single high free safety role or more of the box safety in their cover 3 heavy attack. So I would lean toward keeping May as much as I could if I'm the Jets, because they need at least some defensive pieces.
Yeah, I think the only problem is that it's going to cost a lot of money to do it. It's not,
I get it.
Abstract terms, yeah, absolutely. Keep a guy like Marcus May. He's a really good player, and if you ship him off, you've got to replace him. But if you're in this rebuild world of trying to allocate, when you're rebuilding, one of the things you have to deal with that some other teams don't really is you have a sort of fresh attack at how to construct a roster from the ground up, and therefore where the resources should go. And all of the data essentially would say the resources shouldn't go to a safety. So even if you're in a situation now where he's one of your best players, that's not the situation you want to be in. So you shouldn't head down that road with the contract.
But in a Saleh defense, which it's not just, hey, we play cover 3 every single time, but it's still a big part of their defense where you got to have the true free and a true strong. All of those defenses have excelled when they have, as we talked to Dan Quinn the other day, those prototypes. By the way, if you're a Cowboys fan, listen to the Dan Quinn interview from Monday. I think he's very insightful for your new defensive coordinator. They do need safeties, in that defense. By the way, as a strategy, drafting a Jamal Adams, getting a couple years of play out of him, and then flipping him for 2 first rounders, getting a Khalil Mack, getting a few years out of him and flipping him for multiple first rounders, I would do that every single time. I would trade all of my non-quarterback stars for 2 or 3 first rounders every time, because their impact.
Wouldn't trade them all, but I'd trade a lot of them.
I'd trade a lot of them. Almost all of the non-quarterback stars, maybe not receivers and corners, but the players that the rest of the league maybe values more than they should in relation to wins.
Yeah,
I would.
But that's a hard thing to quantify. Them. My thing would be there's a certain degree of superstar that I would just never trade away because it's too hard to replace those guys. And the draft is still such a crapshoot that you can easily lose out even though you won the trade on paper, right? The problem is, can you correctly draw the line between those guys and the guys that look like that for a brief period of time but aren't really?
Just so look really quick, this might be a daily topic as well. Khalil Mack and Jamal Adams trade. At the time, you look at it like, wow, Bears, you just got Khalil Mack. This is great. But we also saw them peak with a really nice 2018 season, and Khalil Mack can only help you so much. Jamal Adams trade for what Seattle did this offseason, it was like, wow, they've actually got good corners now. You add Jamal Adams to the mix. The offense is cooking because Russ is cooking. And now it's like, well, Seattle fell short. They lost in the wild card round. All right, where are the holes on the roster? We don't have a first rounder this year. We don't have a first rounder next year. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Bears have been dealing with. They had a great 2018 season, and then they don't have a first round pick for 2 straight years to actually improve their team.
The Bears,
it's like the same story. It's a great emotionally at first, and then before you know it, it's like, whoa, how are we going to actually get better?
The Khalil Mack trade is the rare lose-lose trade. You sometimes you get a win-win. Both teams won. They made out of it well. I think the Bears and the Raiders both lost. Chicago got Khalil Mack and traded away a bunch of stuff, and it hasn't done them any good. And the Raiders won the trade on paper, got a ton back,
drafted poorly,
and have turned it into nothing.
Yeah.
Like, neither team made out well from that trade. I think the Jets absolutely won the Jamal Adams trade. They got 2 first-round picks for a guy who, as good as he is a safety and can't make that big of an impact on your wins. So that's 100% on board with that. I'm just saying that there's no trade you could give me to make me trade away a Randy Moss.
I agree with that.
I don't think I would ever trade away an Aaron Donald. I don't think you can throw enough at me for me to be interested in trading away an Aaron Donald.
No, transcendent players.
Yes.
Or high value receivers and corners.
But my point is, can you correctly identify a transcendent player versus a player that looks like it for a while and isn't?
Yeah, like I said, the Panthers should have traded Christian McCaffrey when his value was crazy high after year 2. And what does that look like right now? Yeah, no kidding. They should have. All right, one more guy to talk about. Trent Williams, San Francisco 49ers. What a fascinating career Trent Williams has had. He just finished the season as our top-graded offensive tackle for the 3rd time in history.
Having not really played for a while.
Yeah, after not playing for a long time.
And by the way, add him to the mental tally of guys that took some time away from the game, came back, like the sabbatical.
You've been talking about this for a while, right? Guys that take time. It seems like offensive, like Richie Incognito.
Just make sure I remember, because the next time that comes up, I'll forget Trent Williams did it.
Richie Incognito, Trent Williams, Marshawn Lynch did it, but he didn't look good coming back.
No.
Yeah, some guys did, though. Anyway, Trent Williams has been our top-graded offensive tackle in 2013, 2016, and now 2020. So grab him in 4 years, and he'll be the best tackle in the NFL. But it's a big decision. I thought the Niners did great to pick him up this offseason for a couple mid-round picks. But now they have a decision to make as far as bringing him back.
You don't often replace one of the greatest players in your franchise's history, Joe Staley, a guy who he's probably not a Hall of Famer, but Ring of Honor, right? 49ers Ring of Honor player, Joe Staley, that kind of caliber career. You don't replace a guy like that and easily. It's usually a problem. It usually becomes an issue the next year. The 49ers not only replaced him, not only didn't skip a beat, but actually upgraded at the position by having the year that Trent Williams just had. It's nuts.
Really incredible.
And he was good in pass protection, really good in pass protection, but run blocking, he was stealing people's souls all season long. And this is an offense that likes to do that. He's well suited for this offense as well as just being an important piece of the puzzle. I know he's getting on in years, but I would really be trying to bring him back if I'm the 49ers.
He's 32 years old. He'll be 32, at the start of next season, or 33 at the start of next season. We have seen tackles age well. I think if you can get him on a 3-year deal, I know Anthony Costanzo just retired, and if a guy does hit the wall and retire for whatever reason, it does put you in a massive hole. But I would do what I could if I'm the Niners to lock him up.
I mean, Whitworth is 38 and still going strong. Jason Peters played well up until 38 and then hit an injury wall. I would say the concern with Williams is that he has dealt with a series of niggling injuries for a while. He's been banged up for a long time. So if it is a case of the older you get as an offensive lineman, the more the cumulative weight of injuries just starts to grind on you, then maybe he will hit a wall pretty quickly and fall off. But if it's a case of those guys just go on forever these days into their late 30s, and you got 5 more years of elite play out of Trent.
And Mike McGlinchey.
Yes.
2 guys in their late 30s.
1 or 2 for Mike.
The argument against Trent Williams, though, a lot of tackles going to be drafted in the first couple rounds next year. True. Shanahan's system has done a really good job of developing tackles, putting them in position to succeed. And when they find their type of zone blocking tackle, they usually do have success in that system. But definitely a decision for the Niners to make. So as always, a lot of free agent discussion. If you're wondering about our Phillip Rivers take, he did retire. Is he a Hall of Famer? It's all part of the PFF Daily. If you're loving our podcast here, you're going to love the Daily just as much. So go check it out wherever you're listening to this podcast. Search PFF NFL Daily. Subscribe, listen. We appreciate everybody that's already moved over there. It's not millions and millions yet, but it's like hundreds of thousands that are listening. So we appreciate that. It's not really that much, guys. I'm just kidding. But we appreciate the support. So that'll do it for us today. Championship weekend. Everybody enjoy the football this weekend. We'll be back Monday reviewing all the games and a lot more free agency, off-season talk. Actually, on Monday, I got a mock draft coming out.
Oh, yeah?
PFF.com. So you can dissect my mock draft. We'll get into some draft discussion.
Worst mock ever.
Senior Bowl practice is next week. The Senior Bowl game is a week from this Saturday. All sorts of off-season fun, picking it up as we go here. So enjoy the football. We'll see you guys on Monday.